everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the FanFiAddict Book Club. I am your co-host, MJ Kuhn, president of the Fritz Haters Fan Club.
And I am Frasier Armitage, part-time robot, full-time nerd, and definitely would have died in the proving. This is episode 4 of our series, which is covering Of Blood and Fire.
Yes, and today we are joined by the amazing author of that book, the incredibly tall, talented, and tenacious Ryan Cahill. Thank you for joining us today, Ryan. How are you?
I'll take 2 of the 3 T's, tenacious and tall. I can test amazing as well.
Oh, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm alive. First check every morning, wake up and I'm like, you know what? I survived through the night. I didn't die of exhaustion. That's all that matters. Trying to balance all this with a very, very hyper energetic 1-year-old who we've discovered really, really, really loves the 1975.
Oh, well, hey, at least she's got good taste.
Yeah, no, she does. She bops.
Kids have the best taste in music until they hit about 4 or 5, and then it just goes all off the rails. But
well, it kind of depends. This is probably not the topic of our podcast right now, but I feel like kids vibe with what we push on them, and like my parents are like pushing like the bare necessities and Frozen and Moana, and like Moana's great, but that's what they were pushing on her, and she was loving it. And then I went and I turned on the 1975, and she was like, yes. She's going crazy to it. So like if you give them that music, all they're really listening to are the vibes and the beats. So you choose. You could put yourself through 19 reruns of Frozen, or you can play U2 and 1975.
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah. I thought I'd done so well, Ryan. My little one was rocking out to like 80s classics. It's like he listened to Baby Shark for the first time when he was about 3, and he was like, what is this? Then he hit 4, right? And all he wants to listen to is like the cheesy Disney. And it's just like, what happened to you? You used to be so cool, dude. It's like,
come back around. It's just a phase, Frasier. It's just a phase.
Yeah, in about 10 to 15 years, he's going to come right back around. Yeah, until then, no.
If he doesn't, I'll be worried, right?
I'm still listening to Baby Shark at 19. Oh my gosh. Awesome. Well, okay. So, Ryan, we like to start every episode of our book club, by summing up the section of the book we've read that week in 3 words before we dive in. So now we're going to make you do that for the entirety of Blood and Fire.
Oh, that's so hard. Because I also haven't reread it since I wrote it. I would say dragons, duty, family.
Ooh,
nice.
I love that. Very good. Dragons, duty, and family. Nice.
I had to make sure that I really pronounced the T, because sometimes American people make fun of Irish people for the way they pronounce the T. It's like, did you just say duty? It's like, God damn it.
Like, damn it, Americans. We're all 12. It's fine.
What was really nice about doing the 3-word thing is you get to see like the pacing of the book, and you get to see how it all like works out. Because one of the things I loved about it was like the way that the book kind of simmered like in the first part of it, and then it gets really just like crazy towards the end. And I think I'd have just been lapping it up had we not been doing that. But it was great to see how it was done. I loved it. I thought the pacing was like awesome, Ryan. So yeah,
it's like
reading it. It's great.
It's such a weird experience talking about this book. Like it's cool, but like it's just so strange because now I recently I had to give the book to John Gwynne and to Jay Kristoff, and people I respect, people who like I didn't grow up reading John Gwynne because I read him when I was in like my 20s, but it was a really big part of my fantasy journey. And I really respect him as an author, and I have to be like, I swear to God, it gets better. All right. This is because like I have this thing that I've said many times, and that like, this is my first book. It's the first thing I've ever written in my entire life. All right. It absolutely has to be the worst thing I've ever written, or else I have not been working hard enough since then. So it's real strange. Like you're handing it over to someone and being like, oh man, like I personally love this book. I think like it wouldn't have done as well as it did if it wasn't good, is the only way that I can make myself believe that it's good, because I'm always biggest self-critic, But I'm very aware, like, that everything you write, the flaws that it has, like, and it's one of those things that we decided when we were like re-editing this book for the trad release, was we made a conscious choice to not re-edit it, like, really not have, it's just a polish, because it didn't want to like pretend to like newer authors coming up who are like who are following, say, like the path that I went down, to think that I had the skills then that I have now. And I should have a lot more skills. I've published like 1.5 million words like in that time. So if I'm not better, like I don't know what was happening. I need to be better somehow.
No, totally. It's like first book syndrome. But speaking about the path that you went down, right? That kind of like leads me into something that I wanted to talk to you about. Me and MJ were like chatting. We're like, what can we ask Ryan about this book? And the path that you went down to get here is kind of a little bit crazy, right? Because you went down like this classic trajectory of like biochemist to dragon writer, right? Which is just totally natural.
Classic pipeline.
Yeah. So like, can you tell us a bit about that journey, about what that was like, and how this book fit into your earlier life?
It didn't so much as fit into my earlier life, so much as it did consume it. Like, it was just one of those weird things where I think I was in a job I hated, and not really that I hated, but that they'd hired me like 6 months in advance. They didn't need me. I was working as a microbiologist at the time, because I have, like, my degree involves medical mycology as well. So like I was working as a microbiologist at the time, and this company hired me in as their first microbiologist. They were in a different area beforehand, and they didn't need microbiologists. So they hired me as my first one, and the project wasn't going to come around for like another 6 months. So they put me in this like office that used to be a filing cabinet, and that was it. I had no work. And so I'd watched like 3 seasons of The Last Kingdom on Netflix. I was trying. I actually got I got chastised for trying to go and do work, which is a whole different story. But like, I was like, all right, fine. So I'm going to watch Netflix then. So I watched like 3 seasons of Netflix of The Last Kingdom, and I was like, this is a fucking waste of time that I will never get back. I've always kind of wanted to try and write a book. Like, I'm sure everyone has that thing in their head where, I'm going to do it. And so that's when like a lot of the formative stuff was born. But it wasn't until that kind of took a little backseat, and then COVID hit. And then when COVID hit, I was working night and day shifts, 12-hour shifts. So 7 p.m., 7 a.m., 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we were there, and COVID hit, and I couldn't do anything else. I literally, in Ireland anyway, there was like 2-kilometer radius established from your home. So you weren't allowed to go further out. And sort of said, fuck it. And I started writing, and then it became an obsession. So like I would like get up at 6 a.m., go to work at 7 a.m., finish at 7 p.m. I'd like get home like 7:30. I'd like go to the gym, eat some food, and then I'd write from like 9 p.m. to like 3 a.m. And then I'd get up at 6 a.m. and I'd go to work at 7, and then I'd do that. And then when it switched around, I would like go to work at 7 p.m. till 7 a.m., get home at 7:30, write till 10:30, and then sleep until about, I don't know, like 2, get up, go to the gym, go to work, rinse, repeat. And then I just did that for like the whole year. And in that time, that's when I wrote like A Blood and Fire, and I wrote Of Darkness and Light, I wrote The Fall, all during that. And there's a really funny anecdote that I hadn't actually shared except on a live stream, where I actually wrote all of those first 3 on a German keyboard. And so, and this is where it's really funny. I know I'm on like a basic massive monologue right now, but like it is really funny because some people, like when they see, especially like authors who are like aspiring, will go like, oh, it's easy for Ryan to say because, he'll do this and then, he'll just sell all these books or do whatever, right? But then when I started, my keyboard it was broken, and I wanted to get like a mechanical style keyboard. And I was like, all right, cool. And they're really expensive. And I looked on Amazon Germany, and there was this Rocat keyboard, that mechanical keyboard that was great, and it was like way cheaper. I was like, oh, amazing, I'll order that. And it arrives. And so like there are letters in the German alphabet that aren't in the English alphabet. So the keyboard is different. Like the layout's entirely different. And I didn't know what was going on. And so I learned to touch type because I mapped the German keyboard to an Irish keyboard and then just never looked down. So, so I wrote of Blood and Fire, The Fall, and of Darkness and Light on a keyboard I couldn't look at in a different language, while doing those 12-hour overnight shifts. That's just a fun little piece of information that people now know that I'm an absolute fucking idiot.
You were being resourceful, is how I took that.
I didn't have money. I didn't have money to replace it. Like, I had just spent the money. That's what I mean. Is in, like, at the time, like, the books they're selling now, like, they were not selling like that then. You know, I got that, and I literally had this keyboard, and I was like, I can't replace this keyboard.
I'm stuck with it now.
I guess I got to learn to touch type really fucking quick.
Is that why the bad guy is called Fritz? Because you were like, I hate the German keyboard.
I did not even know that Fritz was an actual name. I was just like, this sounds cool. And then...
I love it.
Yeah.
And then it's a name. Oh.
Yeah, the keyboard just auto-corrected.
It just took you there.
Yeah.
Oh. I want to talk a little bit about this, the other interesting and unusual part of your journey, which is this shift from going indie initially, finding huge success, finding this audience that absolutely loves and adores these books, and then moving into the trad side of things with the Broken Binding Publishing. I want to start on what made you choose indie as your path initially? What was it about the independent publishing that called to you?
So it's like, I have this really cheesy thing that I've said before. And I think, like, for me, so I think there's things that I need to make clear with some of this. So like I never queried, I never submitted. Like, indie was my choice from the start. I never wanted to go trad when I was doing it. And a big part of it was not because I had any issue with trad. It was because I kind of said to myself, like, my dad tends to give a lot of these inspirational speeches. And so my brain kind of goes that way. And so I give myself these speeches where I'm just like, look, you are allowed to fail, but you will not fail because you didn't work hard enough. And you will not fail because someone else made it so. You are going to fail on your own terms, and the only person you're allowed to blame is yourself. And that was very much where my head was with that. And I think, like, one thing I want to be real clear of when I'm going into part of the trad world here, and I think that can get lost sometimes, is that indie is not a stepping stone to trad. And I think there's a fear that I have in me that now that I'm doing this with the Broken Binding, some people will look at it that way and go, oh, look, he went indie and then he finally got to be trad published. And I was like, no, that's not what happened here. My ebooks are still indie. I still own the rights to everything else. I've sold my print because it is the best financial route for stability for an author, is to have a hybrid model where you have multiple revenue streams that can't be collapsed by a single instance. So now I'm not beholden to Amazon. You know, I have my print, and then my print is being sold worldwide. And because of that established with the print, I got more translation deals, and then my audio is with an entirely different company. And so it was about reaching new audiences and kind of getting, like, which I think is the best of both worlds, which is that I have the high royalties from being indie. I have the ebooks that are widely available. Not technically by the wide definition, they're still on Amazon. That's a problem, but we can't deal with it right now. But the books are in bookstores, which is the big thing with being indie, which is nearly impossible to do, is have them widely in bookstores. You know, it was weird that I could walk into a bookstore in Rome and find my book, but not in the US or the UK or Ireland. So I don't know. I just feel like I have this, like, innate thing in the back of my head. It's like, I need to clear this up on anything that I go on, because I don't want new authors thinking that is how I look at indie, or that is how indie is that it's like this way to real publishing. That's not the case. You know, I think for both sides, you're going to see a lot of trad authors in the next 5 or 6 years testing waters, trying to hybridize, because it's the best way to have a stable income.
Completely agree. Yeah, where I love that about the diverse income streams. I think I have said a number of times, I think hybrid is the future, right? Where you do, like, the distribution and trad for physical copies can't be understated.
There is no comparison, but I think it's part of it as well. It's like, I don't want the trad world to collapse. The trad world is what keeps publishing alive. So, like, indie's there, okay, but bookstores and the traditional publishing world are part of what we love about publishing. You know, I don't want them to die. I want it to be synergistic. I want to work with each other and keep the publishing industry that I love alive, because if the publishing industry didn't exist, like, I wouldn't have met you, MJ, because you wouldn't have been published by the trad. Like, there's all these different things that create the industry that we love. And it's about, like, I think it's real good in the UK in particular is that there's less and less of a fight between it. And I think what's really cool is you're seeing like what Matt Dinneman got with PRH, and then I have with TBB. These indies coming through, I have this position and this chance to open doors to deals that were not being done, and those deals are like print rights only deals that were not being done because traditionally TradPub only wanted to acquire all rights. And so showing the viability of, hey, I'm not giving you everything, but would you like free money? And hopefully that creates opportunity for more deals from more authors to kind of do that, to be empowered as well as getting, you know, the books on bookshelves.
Yeah. And it must mean that you still have a greater degree of control over your IP as well. So things like titles and things like that, you're not beholden to like a publisher to then who can come in and be like, right, well, I'm gonna completely change all of this for you. In terms of the title, Ryan, I have a little private theory about the title, but I just want to ask you first, right? Was Of Blood and Fire your original title for the book? Was it always going to be that?
No, the original title. The original title was the name of the series. So
really interesting. Well, that makes sense. And then you were like, no, this story's way bigger.
There was two parts that went through. It was like the original title was the name of the series, and then the second title was Dralade. So that's the second one. And then I was like, nah, I need it to be far more like conceptually easy to pronounce. You know, I don't want someone to look at it and question how it's pronounced. So then that came around and I was looking, and actually it's the title for the second book that came first. So it was Of Darkness and Light came first, and then Of Blood and Fire. And then we're launching, it was like, fuck, George R. Martin has Fire and Blood. God damn it. And say for the first year, my SEO was just shot in the face. But now when you type Of Blood and Fire, it's me. But when it was like, and that's cool on its own. But when it was original, if you type my title in, it was just Fire and Blood came up.
No, that is something like with Among Thieves that I never thought of is SEO. And now every book I'm like, I gotta make sure that I can own the SERP on this.
It's one of those things, right, where it's against you at the start, but if you create enough traction, you will always recover that SEO. And like it's real funny. It's like you can chart my journey by seeing how searchable the title was and getting the right result across the last 4 years. You know, as the results become more accurate, that's directly correlates. It's proportional to the sales of the books.
You're building that traction. Oh, okay.
So my little theory, Ryan, just to fill you in, was that I thought what happened is that you couldn't decide, right, between what the first word of the title should be. So it was going to be Son of Blood and Fire or Sword of Blood and Fire or that kind of thing. And you just in the end just accidentally deleted the first word and was like, oh, Blood and Fire works. Yeah, let's just do that.
Like
that was my theory, right? But
no, see, it was never going to be it was never going to be the extra word, because like then you start getting into like a song of this and that and a blade of cheese and toast, and it's
cheese and toast. Is it nice having the name of the series the original title? That must be a nice feeling, right?
It's cool. Yeah, it's like oh, that's still there. Yeah, it is nice.
Okay, so we have a bunch of questions from our Discord. But in the interest of time, I figure we can speed run them.
We'll do whatever. I have an issue with talking, as in I don't ever stop. So we'll just see how it goes. Yeah.
Right. You're like, we're good with it. Yeah. Ryan, I'm also going to let you know the connection is glitching a little bit. So if we are staring at you, it's because we're waiting for it to
it's just out of love and affection, is it? If we're staring at you, it's because you're so beautiful.
That's what it is. We're so in awe. Let's go with that. But just so you aren't like, what is wrong with these people? It's just we got a little lag, but it's okay. We'll fight through it. So our first Discord question is: when you were writing Of Blood and Fire, did the themes shift or deepen in ways that you didn't expect while you were writing that first story? Which I know we're going back quite a ways in timeline, but
no, because I'm pretty like I'm pretty aware on this. Like I think for me, yes, 100%. I think I also didn't go into it with themes in mind. I think that's kind of I think that's important. Like for me, when I was writing the stories, I realized that if you go into writing a story with themes in mind, it's extremely difficult to not do them heavy-handedly. I think, and it's almost unavoidable. Like you go to like even like Rebecca Kwong, like if you go into like Yellowface and other bits, part of what you're doing there, like she is intentionally leaning into the themes. Like they're heavy-handed on purpose. It's almost impossible for them not to be heavy-handed when you're trying to send a message or trying to show something. And so because the books that I'm writing are not meant to be so overtly themed, like Yellowface is like a social criticism or a social critique. And so when I was doing it, I just wanted to write my story. And what I realized was when I went to my second draft, when I reread, that's when I understood what I was writing. Like I knew what I was writing, but I understood the depth of what I was writing. Things like found family, things like processing grief, like support, mental health, especially when I got into like book 2 and I started realizing those things. I think the themes became a bit stronger, and not intentionally, but I became more aware of the things that I wanted to say. Not like, again, overtly, but just in a natural storytelling sense. As I was writing book 2, like anything, I became more aware of my authorial voice, became more aware of who I was as an author, and the kinds of stories I wanted to tell. So in a sense, yes, they did continuously deepen. I think all your themes, as the structure goes, all your themes should deepen on your second draft, because they're the things that I'm personally working on in my second draft. I'm working on narrative voice. I'm working on like distinction of character in my second drafts. I'm working on trying to deepen those things. And it's really funny. I was on an interview before when I said that, and people were like, "Oh, well, that's funny you say that, because I noticed there was a lack of this in Blood and Fire." And I'm like, "Yeah, it was my first book, and I'm talking as the author of 7 books. So the knowledge that I'm giving you now is the author 4 years after writing that one. So that one, and that's the danger of but like of your first book being like your air quotes success, is that it's the first thing. We're saying earlier about how I get worried. It's the first thing you have to show yourself. So if you want to say, "Oh, what should I read from you?" I was like, "Well, you have to start here, And it's the point where I least knew who I was. And so as you keep going, those themes should deepen. As I write the next book, the themes should deepen. As I get to my second draft, they should deepen. I think that's part of the process. Every author is different, but I don't like to pre-structure too much. I like to have the bones, and then I like to be able to grow and shift when I'm writing. That was a speed run, technically, really, wasn't it?
That was so. I loved it.
Yeah.
I reckon you can probably do this next question real fast though, Ryan, because this is something you've already talked about. Okay, so this next question is about how the books get longer and more expansive after this one. So Pete wanted to know, how have you changed or improved as a writer since sitting down to write Of Blood and Fire, which has led to that expansion in later books?
In every single facet. So. But the expansion in later books, and this is something I find really interesting. I think you might find interesting as writers. So, Cahill has 130,000 words of POV in book 1. He has 130,000 words of POV in book 2. He has about 130 to 140,000 words in POV in book 3, and the same in book 4. So the core story did not expand. What happened was, when I was writing book 1, this is how it went. When I was writing book 1, I was consciously aware that I was not skilled enough to create the story that I wanted. I wanted book 2, but I knew I wasn't good enough to write book 2. So I wrote book 1. I sprinkled in a few extra points of view so that readers wouldn't be shell-shocked when it goes from 1 POV to like 7 in book 2. All right, I wanted to provide that gradient, and then I intentionally used the fall to learn strength of narrative voice. So I then went and made a novella, which breaks one of the first rules of novellas, which is the small contained story from a single point of view in a single time. which is usually what a novella is. I think that's a core thing until you get good enough to be able to break the rules, because all rules are meant to be broken. And I took 4 points of view on the same battle and tried to practice the different ways all of them would see the same thing, so that when I went to write book 2, I had more skills for writing different perspectives. And so the books got expansive, but it's because, like, if you ever watch Mary Robinette Kowal, she talks about the mice quotient when you're writing short stories and writing fiction, and how the number of points of view you have should be directly proportional to the length of your story. So as I introduced other points of view, it wasn't that the story itself, the core story, bloats or expands. It's that we're now telling more than one story. And that's, again, you said you should be able to answer this in a really short time. But this is how my brain works, because I've always faced this when people, like, with the latter books are very long, and they're like, oh, you need to justify the word count. I was like, yeah, you need to justify the word count for every book. What I have to justify to you is why I'm choosing to tell these stories in the long form that I am, and why I'm not taking a 400,000 word book and breaking it into 3. Because if I've done my job right, you should not be able to break up my 400,000 word book and find satisfying endings. It should be building. What I wanted was that interconnectedness of stories. So I wanted to have these independent stories that each affect each other in real time, and not like just looking back and seeing how they connect as in different books. I want the decisions this character makes to affect this character in real time. And I want the reveals from this character to affect how you see this character in real time. So I needed the interconnectedness, and I needed them in the same book. And so, like, does that make it a better story than a story written at 250,000 words? No. Does it make it better than one written at 5? No. But it makes it its own type of story. I think, like, when people instantly say, oh, well, they could just be 350,000 word books. I was like, yeah, but all stories weren't meant to be the same. The story I'm telling now, yeah, it could have broken it up, but it would have been a totally different story. Like, what you would have read would have been completely different, because you're not getting the interconnectedness that affects each chapter. I don't know, it's the nerdy craft part of it for me, is why I do it in that long form. Because I will tell you one thing to debunk any theories: it does not earn you more money. Like, the longer stories, I'm not writing longer stories for more money. Like, yes, your Kindle Unlimited page reads are paid per page, but if I broke it into 3 stories, I'd get the same page reads, and I'd get paid for each individual book as it came in. As it goes now, I make like $1 off a hardback from Empires in Dust. That is not a financially viable plan. I did it because it was the story I wanted to tell. And it's that's my short answer.
Yeah.
I love it, and I love that it's not this idea of the book's getting longer later on because you're trying to bloat a story, but because you're adding things
You're
extra.
telling more stories.
It's like, and I love that it's got a real authentic expansion in that way. I think that's probably what readers latch onto about it, because you're not trying to make the books longer. You're just trying to tell more, which is great.
Anything,
I love it.
Part of me was kind of like, how do I stop? This is the big thing. And people talk about like dragons and stuff. Like, the reality is, if you've never read my books, you can say they're books about dragons, right? But like, once you read the books, you realize that dragons are part of the story, but that's not what the story's about. There's so much.
Well, we should confess we are causing trouble in the fandom, because we have added a new reading order to the argument. I would argue for this reading order, though, because it slaps. We read The Fall after the first third of Blood and Fire.
Yeah.
That's not new.
Chapter 11.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
That's not new.
Getting shit for
so
it.
there's like there's established orders, but then there's loads. So there's a full chronological reading order, where so people start with The Fall, all right, and then they read The Fall, and then The Fall goes into, I believe, parts of the Exile, goes into the Ice, and then where the Ice ends, then they read a Blood and Fire, and then there's a point where the Ice and a Blood and Fire intersect, and the story, there's the whole thing. I can't remember it all exactly, but there are plenty, and it's going to be upset more because the first section of the 4th novella starts 100 years before The Fall, so it's all. And this has been planned.
I love it.
Like,
I love it.
This has been
that we are
the
not causing trouble.
No, it was great though, because like we got to the end of chapter 11, then we went back and read The Fall, and it was such a perfect spot that we were like saying to the people in the book club, try it this way.
Wait, do it this way.
Everyone who tried it loved it, right?
Oh,
and then
I can see the merits
to like the hardcore fans, right? They're gonna be like, no, you've done it wrong. You've
Right.
done it wrong. No, that's not the way to do it. It's like
a lot of the rereads can happen that way. It's very hard to get people, like it's hard enough to get people to read novellas, all right? Never mind telling them that the reading order involves them stopping this book at this point, starting this book, then moving to this book, then going here, then doing that. And it's like, yeah, like, but I can 100% see it, because like it's essentially, and this is kind of, there was 3 reasons why I wrote The Fall, all right? The first one, outside of the general reasons of the story, the first one was to give new readers something to jump into, test where my writing was, test how they felt about it, and give a concept of where the world can get to, right? The kind of power scales and stuff we're talking about, and then go into Blood and Fire. And the other one was to also read a Blood and Fire first, and then to be able to go back and see The Fall, all right? But then the third one is this concept of what you're saying now, which I haven't actually really said to people before, was I always thought it would be cool that The Fall is like seeing Theron's story instead of hearing it.
Yeah.
So like you get to that part in the story where he tells the story, and instead of hearing it, you watch it, and then you come back. And so like that is a legitimate third order. It's a very difficult one to convince anyone to do up front.
Yeah. I want an edition where The Fall happens after chapter 11 in the book, and then you come back to it later on, right? Just print it there, because it's so cool. You get the introduction of Aeson and like all of that, and then you're like, what is going on here? And then you go back and read The Fall, and you get the context for that, and it's like, wow, like you're so hooked at that point, and it's like we loved it. It was great. So yeah, it's
like gives me
it, but like everybody.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we need to make it happen. We need to make it happen. 100%. Next edition, that's what it's got to be. Yeah.
It gives me immeasurable pleasure people enjoying book 1, because it's one of those things that I push it aside and I go, because it's always going to be the most heavily criticized. And it's also going to be the one I'm most sensitive about, because it was my first love in stories. And it was real funny because Andrea Stewart, she read it and she gave me a great blurb for it. And then I didn't realize she was reading book 2. And she got to the ending of book 2 and she was like, that ending, how dare you? I was like, ha.
A little evil chuckle. I love it. Oh, well, let's talk about the vibes of Blood and Fire. The next question we have from our Discord is that a lot of people describe this book in particular as nostalgic, classic high fantasy vibes in the best way possible. Was that a conscious decision to chase a traditional fantasy audience, or just the organic result of you writing what you wanted?
So there's both. It wasn't a conscious decision to chase an audience, because I wasn't really thinking about audience at that stage. Like I legitimately was like, I'll just write a book and hopefully I'll sell a few copies, and that was it. So I wasn't really thinking about that when I was writing it, but it was a conscious decision in general. I wanted to write a story that I've said this a few times before, but like I would go back and I'd read books that I read when I was younger, and they wouldn't feel the same, because I had changed. And so I wanted a story that the adult me could go back to and feel the same. So I wanted to write a story so that people who had read fantasy when they were younger could find, I don't know if you get it, like even with a game, like you played a game when you were younger and you went back to play it as an adult and you did not get that feeling. And so I wanted to write a book that gave you that feeling. And then I wanted to write a book that if you were new to fantasy would give you the feeling as an adult that I got when I read those books for the first time when I was younger. And so it was very much, that's what I wanted. And people are like, one of the critics says, doesn't bring anything new to the genre. I was like, it wasn't meant to. Novelty is dead in most senses, because like everything has been written in one sense or another. And there are some books that will come out with genuinely novel things. But it just wasn't my goal. I was like, I want to write a cool story. I want to write a story that people will love. I want to write a story that feels like home, a story that feels warm. And then as we get into it more, like a story that kind of goes through everything else, goes through grief and heartbreak and deals with dark themes and, still has that. I think one of the readers a few years ago coined it grim heart, like, especially when it gets to like book 2 and moves onwards, is that like, it is this dark world and horrible things happen. But there is an underlying sense of hope and there are good people here. That balance of having great characters, but because for me, a great character is just a human being. That's we call great. Anyone who has like any type of ambiguous morality in a situation is called gray, and it's like that's human complexity.
Just a person.
Yeah, and like there's those characters like Cahill makes choices as we go through the series that like fucking haunt him, like they just scar him for life. He's a good human and he wants to do the right thing, but sometimes in those situations it is what it is. It was very much intentional. I could have just said yes, it's intentional.
On the back of that though, like, because I think an awful lot of fantasy, particularly at the time when this released, was pivoting in like the grimdark direction, and it was getting very, very, very dark. And then this comes along, and it doesn't have that kind of tone about it. Like you say, grim heart. It's hopeful and it's nostalgic. It's got all the classic elements to it. Did that help you to find your niche within the fandom, or do you think that has limited your audience? That's something that David wanted to know.
It definitely hasn't limited anything. That's for sure. But it's a weirdo because like my writing is, this is the thing. What I'm writing is not niche, so I didn't find a niche. Like, and it's just happened to be. That's what I loved reading, and so I have like this again a line that I've said a million times where I felt like Justin Bieber entering the music scene when pop music was niche. Like, people were calling classic epic fantasy niche, and what happened was I walked in and I was like, how the fuck am I the only one here? Why is the dance floor empty? Like, I walked in and it was just Brandon Sanderson just doing the robot in the corner. And that was like, that was it, because especially in the size of books that I was writing, it's not that I'm comparing myself to Brandon Sanderson in a standing or any perspective, but he's the only other author producing legitimately 400,000 word books. It really is in that size at the minute, only me and him. I'm sure there are other authors out there doing it, but in the open commercial sphere right now, that's all I'm seeing. And so when I came in, there was very much an unfed audience. And it is kind of part of it too. Like, publishing, people complain a lot now, like romantasy and romantasy's dominance and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, publishing moves in swings. Like, it's going to happen. But it's your job then to recognize those swings, not to just keep moving and switching and writing whatever you want to chase a trend. But like, that swing, although it seems like it should have been bad for me, actually just created a void of content that people didn't have. Traditional publishers weren't acquiring like classic epic fantasy. They were acquiring epic fantasy of different flavors, different types, be it Sapphic, be it kind of like East Asian, be it anything. There's different types of fantasy there. But just this classic epic fantasy by newer authors wasn't really being published. And so what that meant was you came in the indie sphere, and people were finding in that indie world what they couldn't find on a bookshelf at the time. Because, of course, Tolkien was still there, and like one of my favorites, like John Gwynne, is still there and stuff. But a lot of people, once they've read them, they've read them. And that's the thing about books, is that in true sense, you're never competing. Like, I think the trad world forces authors to compete, because you're competing for launch dates, you're competing for shelf space, editor time, publisher attention, but naturally they should actually lead into each other. And that's where indie and trad differ massively, is that I don't feel like I've ever been competing with a fellow indie author. All I'm ever doing is bringing more readers into the genre for them, and they're bringing more readers into the genre for me. And their series doing well and people reading it then gives readers a hunger for that. So it was real strange. I felt like I came in at a time that was very fortuitous, very serendipitous for me. I definitely don't feel like it was limited in any way, just because classic epic fantasy is, you can do so much with it, but it's kind of like, I don't know. I'm gonna go out and say one of the weirder things I've said. is that I feel like classic epic fantasy is to books what like tomatoes are to cooking. Okay? They are the most widely acceptable, enjoyed base. Okay? You can move outwards from that in any direction and all these different flavors and styles, but the advantage of it is all the people who love these things are enjoying the same base. And that came, if you look at like Fourth Wing, all right, a lot of people would think, and they said it before, Ryan must hate Fourth Wing because it's like, it's not dragons, it's dicks and dragons, and it's all about romance, and it's all this, But the reality is, Fourth Wing granted a huge amount of accessibility to romance readers who maybe didn't read a lot of fantasy, came into romantasy through Fourth Wing, and then realized that the base, the tomatoes, is what they liked. That they loved romance from reading it, but then also actually I kind of like the epic quest. I like the vibe. I like the aesthetic. I like the heart in the characters. Because one thing, again, another monologue from me, one thing that I find links romance and fantasy really well, and why they're a great crossover, is the heart of characters. Because romance, historically, to be romance, you kind of have to have a cookie cutter ending, because you can't really deviate. Classic romance can't deviate from the happy ever after, because otherwise, if the guy dies at the end, it's a tragedy. It's not a romance. And it's one of those things that because of that, it forces you to write extremely compelling characters. And I feel like one of the core crossovers between romance and fantasy is the depth of character. Very long answer for me again, which is totally out of character for me.
I was thinking, like, what are we going to use as the thumbnail for this video? But I think that answer gave us it. I think what we need is,
tomato.
You know that end scene from Step Up 2, where there's the two of them dancing in the rain. I think that needs to be
really
you and Brandon Sanderson on the dance floor, right? And instead
there
of
is
the
a
rain,
video.
It's just tomato puree, right?
There is a video of me dancing with Matt Dinneman at Dragonsteel, like slow dancing. So that's its own one.
Yeah,
I think it holds. I think it holds up to criticism.
Yeah, it works. It totally works. Because you're
tomato.
right.
I love that. Right. Our next question comes from our Discord member Liz. So your characters begin. Hi, Liz. Your characters begin quite young and quite innocent. Before fate pushes them into some darker territories. Did you ever consider aiming?
Did you just play the piano?
YA audience? What?
No. I accidentally twigged. There's a little spring here, so I reached my water and it twanged a spring. Sorry.
You said like younger characters, and it gets darker, and he goes, "Dum." Sorry, MJ.
We're very dramatic here.
I didn't mean to cut across your question.
High production levels, yeah.
Let's take that question from the start. We're going to need the spring to repeat,
Hi, Liz.
We need it again, yeah.
Hi, Liz.
Did you ever consider aiming these books at a YA audience, or was it always planned to be in the adult fantasy camp?
No, 100% never. Part of the purpose of the story was creating an adult accessible feeling for this, like creating the feeling in adults that I had when I was younger. I think it can be a thing where people see younger characters like, oh, it has to be YA. It's like, you look at George R. R. Martin, like they were like 13 when they started. But it's just one of those where I feel like the vibe of the story itself is what determines the audience, not really the age of the characters. Now, I think depending on how you do it, if the entire cast is 6, you're going to have a real hard time trying to aim that at an adult audience. But it was something that I wanted, and I suppose I'm going to go into a much longer answer again. The quick short answer is no. I never considered writing it YA at all. It never came into my head because the purpose was creating the story that I would love now. I'm gonna end it there because I'm gonna have a much longer answer otherwise.
Well, that's good. That's good because Liz has another question she wanted to throw your way.
Hi again, Liz.
The characters end up. Can't get rid of Liz now, can we? Characters
we love her.
They end up hunting a lot of hares for their meals, and it made her wonder, are you a hunter yourself? And if so, what's your preferred weapon or style?
I am into hunter. We've talked about all this before. Like, it's kind of come up because I have friends who are hunting. And for instance, like Christopher Paolini invited me to come and hunt elk in Montana. And my mom was like, would you do that? And I was like, yeah, I would, because like, I'm not vegetarian, and I kind of believe like I would not be a person who wants to go out and just hunt. I don't think that's what I like, but hunting for food, I think if I'm going to eat it, I need to have the steel to go and do it. You know, I think it's its own innate kind of problem where people who have no problem consuming meat and then go, oh God, I can't believe you killed that deer. I was like, you fucking ate it. You know, I don't like the concept of going out and just killing like 6 deer and dragging them back to sell them kind of thing. But if I'm going to go and eat something, like I have my brother-in-law, he hunts, and they would go on a hunt and they'd get one deer, and then that would be butchered and prepared and frozen, and they would eat that then for months, and that would be what keeps them alive. Which I think is a far better. We're going to get into consumerism here, but I think very viable.
Yeah,
there's a lot of rabbits around the glade.
Like, yes, I'm.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of hares.
Yes, I'm a hunter. My preferred method of hunting is Tesco. It's like it's a different like vibe, right?
Oh Jesus!
So our next question, we've actually kind of touched on it a little bit with the keyboard story that dovetailed into talking about Fritz's name. But Keeper wants to know how you named your characters. So were there specific naming conventions you followed? Did you vary them based on time period or region? How did you go about naming your characters?
Yeah, there's little bits. So all the different areas kind of have different cultures in mind. So like the Glade, it comes from like a Celtic style culture. And even like there's an Irish name called Caelan, and Caelan is related to that name. There's a lot of different bits, and in some of the regions, like you haven't met them yet in book one, but you have the Valtarans, who very much have a kind of Greek influence, and a lot of the naming conventions would come from that. But for me, I'm not the kind of writer who can have name character with like brackets and then like come back to them. I have sat there for 2 hours, like because I couldn't name the character. Like I have issues. Like if I go to write a chapter header and I can't come up with it, that chapter is not getting written. Like it comes first, and I would say 99 times out of 100, it's the same chapter name at the end through all the edits. I need it. It like captures a vibe for me. So with the names, that's very much, I feel like there is a convention, but I don't have it mathematically like arranged. So when I go to write it, there's names that I know. I feel like I know these cultures and these societies so well now that I just know, you know, I'm writing it and I go, no, that's not a name that they would have used. No, here, you know, I write it out and I could choose a name 20 times. And then I'm like, no, this is the name. And it kind of naturally is consistent. You know, I feel like if you're really deep in your world, you just know it, like you feel it, like this name is right or this name is wrong. That's an actually reasonably short answer.
That was brilliant. There's a series of questions here that Dominic has asked that are super specific. Okay. So I'm just going to go with the first one, right? Where was Aeson's dragon during the fall? Was he bound at that point, or did Eltoir tell him to send his dragon somewhere while guarding the council chamber?
I will say you will find out exactly where Aeson's dragon was in The Truth when it comes out later this year.
Ooh.
Yes.
Aeson, at the end of the fall, Aeson jumps off a bridge, and in The Truth, we see him land. So
you
will find the answer.
I love it. Yeah. So everyone, got to check out The Truth. The next question from Dominic: does the Fade teleport in some way via the spark, or does he move between realms, maybe the void as well, with some kind of blood magic? So
I'm not going to answer that question. I think Brandon Sanderson calls it a raffo. But there's parts of it that are raffo and parts of it that are, I feel like the ambiguous elements of a story are often some of the most important. I feel like in modern fantasy, we have taken this tack of over-explaining everything. And I think there's a balance. I think having explanations for certain things is important and deepens the world. And giving overt explanations for everything gets rid of ambiguity, and it gets rid of the things that people talk about. It gets rid of conversation in community. So there are certain things that I've just decided not to, like, they usually all have answers, but I've just decided not to give them. Because if you go and do panels, like I did an entire panel on Tom Bombadil at DragonCon, and it was packed. They had to like shut the doors. Like it was like 400 or 500 people. And it's because of the ambiguity of Tom Bombadil. Who was Tom Bombadil? Why was he there? What was the purpose? And if Tolkien had answered that question, well, I actually just got fucking pissed or high on LSD one time and stuck in Tom Bombadil. There'd be no panels. But like we wouldn't be talking about Tom Bombadil. We wouldn't have the mystique around Tom Bombadil. And I think like it's part of it. Like, you know, there's certain things that I will explore later because in story because I want to, and certain things I would never answer because I want you to come up with like I don't want to write a sequel because I want the readers to imagine what the future was like. I want to leave a conclusive story that also has ambiguity in points. Like, I wonder what happened in 100 years. And there's a reason why you would wonder that. Like, I know what the last scene of the last book is, you know? And so I want you to, like, have things to think about. I don't want to answer those things, you know? I want the reader imagination to work. So, yeah, I'm very sorry, Dominic. I'm not going to answer that one.
I know, I think it's great. And I think that it's a little bit like The Phantom Menace looking at the Force, and then post-Phantom Menace looking at the Force, right?
I explained midichlorians to my mom the other day when we were watching The Phantom Menace, and I was like, this literally never fucking comes up again. Because they were like, why in the shit did we do? And, but you know what? On the surface, I get why they did it because it's cool. What you're doing is quantifying something magical in a reasonable explanation, and it makes sense, right? You know, the concept of living force, it's the same as like in Avatar. It's Awa, it's the living, the word's gone from my head, not fungus, the mycelium. That's the one. I was like, "Where's Adrian?" When I need mushrooms. It's that right. It's that living essence in the world that creates it, like and Spren and stuff in the Stormlight Archive. It's a thing, but I don't know. I think in a sci-fi that normally would have been fine, but because it's actually space opera sci-fantasy, that was one of the fantasy elements, and it destroyed one of the fantasy elements, and that was like a deal breaker.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad I managed to get something Star Wars related in because, as everybody knows, like
every episode
for me to go like 50 minutes and it not to happen, I was about to explode.
I was worried. I was. Yeah.
What? Last question from Dominic. Real simple one. Okay. Why can dwarves not draw the spark?
Oh, that's actually explained. If I don't know what book Dominic's in, but that's actually explained later on in the series.
Perfect. Yeah,
so
just in case our audience is mostly on book one.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is like that's kind of the point. Like for instance, I made a choice in book one that I feel like a lot of authors. I feel like if I went trad, I wouldn't have been allowed to make. And that was the prologue for book one doesn't pay off till the end of book two. So you might read the prologue and go, "Why the fuck was that there?" And it's there. But what I wanted to do is I made a choice, right, that I actually don't think I'd earned. And I think now I've earned, but because you have to earn the right to let your audience trust you. And so I did it, and I was like, look, I need my readers to trust me. This is here for a reason, and it's going to require faith, but I guarantee you it will pay off. And I suppose at the time when I did it, it was a bit ballsy because I hadn't really gained the trust. I just launched the first book. If that was my first book in a second series, I feel like I would have earned the trust. But I just did it. I was like, fuck it. And if you get to book two, and there's people who criticize it when they get through book one, and then they finish book two, and they're like, you sneaky fucker.
Oh, well, it's so funny. All of our theories, we were wrong about all of them because we were expecting that prologue to pop back up at the end of this book. But I will say, you say that you hadn't earned the trust throughout this book. We commented time and time again how much you trust your reader and how much that makes us trust you as the author, even just because we have only read book one. So just, I don't know, in case it is nice to hear.
There's loads of little things. There's loads of little things that I planned that were real ambitious in book one, and I was not sure if it was going to work. And like there's moments in book 1 that are planned for like really major moments in book 4, that I would say some of them, like 99% of readers, aren't even going to realize. They're not going to realize that how book 1 and book 4, how it was affected until you go and actually look at it. And so there was parts where I was like, it's the balance, like any author has, is like, do I spoon feed this because how important is this reveal? How necessary is it? Do I write it so that I'm certain everybody will catch it? Or do I do what I want to do and I hide it and I leave the breadcrumbs and know that a lot of my readers are never going to connect those dots, not because the readers aren't able to, but because I really haven't left a huge amount. You want to be really paying attention to make the connections. But yeah.
Well, all of our readers are now paying attention very, very specific to a very specific aspect of fantasy writing, which is if a handsome man appears. Because our theory is that, like, if there's a writer writing fantasy and the guy is a 10 and he's super handsome, you better believe he's either going to die or he's shifty. And now every single book that our book club reads, we are looking out for the handsome factor,
for the handsome
right?
men.
It's like
finding what's wrong with them.
We got to the end of this book of Blood and Fire, and it's like, yep, they either died or were shifty. This stacks up, right? It's like you can't write a 10 as a male fantasy writer. It's just it's not believable. Like,
yep.
So there we go.
Aragorn killed it for everybody.
Yeah.
Aragorn ruined it for everybody. It was the only handsome man allowed in fantasy.
Yeah.
There's only 10.
All the questions. The only 10. He's like an 11 with Vigo's
version. You mean the only version?
Yes, agreed. Yeah, unless it's like the cartoon ones from the 80s, which were a whole different experience. Amazing. Well, that's all the questions that we and our Discord had. Can you, to like wrap us up here, talk a little bit about where everyone can find you? I mean, first of all, online, but also when this airs at the end of January, people will be able to come hang out with you, although a lot of your events are sold out already, in person. You're going on tour, so give us the scoop.
Yeah. The easiest is to go onto my website. It has like the links for all the tour dates. I think the UK Ireland ones. Ireland it was sold out, and then they literally went and bought more chairs, and so now the tickets are back up. And then London with John Gwynn is sold out, but I think there's like 14 tickets left for Joe Abercrombie in Bath, and there's actually quite a few left because we have a big space in Edinburgh with Hannah Kaner, and then I don't think anyone is traveling out to St Andrews up in Scotland unless they live there. Because even from Edinburgh, it's like an hour and a half bus ride. I can't wait to go there, but I don't feel like people are going to be like, "Oh my God, St Andrews! I'm going to travel there from Liverpool." And then, we're all across loads of different places in the US, I think, and Canada. We start off in Toronto, which is sold out, and then New York, which I think is close, and then we go from there to like, which one is it? Utah, and then it's Utah, I believe, to back to Montana. I think Montana. To Madison, Wisconsin, and then to Montana, where I'm doing an event. I'm doing in Madison. I'm actually doing a live event with ML Wong, which is really cool because ML doesn't really do a lot of those events. And so when she said she'd do that event, I was like, fuck yeah. So then we're going there. We're doing an event with Christopher Paolini in Bozeman in Montana. And then I go to Vancouver, which I think has 14 tickets left, which is great. And then to Emerald City Comic Con, where I do a spotlight with Matt Dinneman. And then I have an event with Terry Brooks, which has tickets left, which is cool. And then I'm trying to keep even all in my head. Where am I going? Where's next? And we go from there to I can do it, Johnny. I can do it. I believe North Carolina. I think Raleigh, North Carolina, where I'm with Christopher Rocchio there. And that is close to selling out. And then we go to then we go to San Francisco, where I have an event with Andrea Stewart. And then from there to San Diego, where Philip C. Quantrell is actually flying over. from the UK. We're doing an event there, and then we have an event in Dallas Fort Worth in Texas, and then there's a secret event that has not been announced yet on the 15th that we're still waiting to find out if it's 100%, but it's going to be real cool. And then we're trying to get to Australia, but it's a bit more difficult than we'd anticipated, but we're trying to sort that out. Yeah, so loads of places.
Oh my gosh,
it's not stopping.
Amazing.
I'm pretty sure all of my flights, all my flights are at 6 a.m. Like, I literally have like an event till like 11, and then 6 a.m. flight, event 11, 6 a.m. flight, event, like every single day for like 2 weeks. So
everyone bring Ryan coffees.
and not less spoons, but there's a lot of spoons currently. There's I don't know if you got it. There's a line in A Blood and Fire where Dan talks about his mom hitting him with the wooden spoon of retribution. I did not realize what that was going to do. And so like, I have one here. This is one of the spoons that my readers brought to me at Dragonsteel. They got it laser etched with Dragonsteel 2025 and the wooden spoon of retribution.
Oh,
and then they got me to sign them. And this has been happening for the last 2 years now. I think I got like 6 spoons at Dragonsteel. But then there's one other reader who is making official A Blood and Fire World Tour spoons. And he is mailing them across the world to nearly 100 different readers who are bringing them to the events.
I love that, though.
Like, what dedication. One reader brought one time. But one reader brought one time, and then more, they saw it and kept doing it. And like there was one where I was talking about, so there's this thing, all right, where people go, oh, your characters have 2 similar names. There's Dan, Damon, Dallin. I'm like, that is 3. There is over 400 named characters in this series. There are not that many letters in the alphabet. And if you actually go and break it down on the frequency of lettered occurrence versus the average of lettered occurrence versus the characters per the amount of letters, I'm under the average. And then if you go and you take out ridiculous names, like beginning with X and Z that I'm not going to use, all right? Like, you know, you go to fantasy and there's like Zayden Love Sausage, all right? And then what happened with that, then my readers started bringing me plastic sausages to sign.
Exactly. This is it. The key to this, Ryan, is that in the truth, what you need to have like not the wooden spoon of retribution, but you need to refer to like the freshly chilled beer of destiny, right?
The freshly chilled beer. That would
be that, right?
Yeah. No, 100%.
That's what they start bringing.
Yeah.
I would prefer
what
that.
A life hack.
Well, no, it's one of those things where it's like I now have all these wooden spoons, right? I probably have about 20 of these now. And it's like, that'd be a great kitchen utensil, but like, what if someone dipped one of them in something weird? All right? I don't think I could put these in my food, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make like a...
That's one of the...
shadow box for them.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm going to start... I'm going to get them framed. So I'm going to like make like a display frame of spoons. I feel is the only way to go about this.
One of the tweaks that you should have made with the edits for the re-release is take out wooden spoon and put in something of your choice, and then it would have blown everything out the water. It's not too late, Ryan. You can still do it. It's all good.
I feel like considering the fact that they are printed already, it is definitely too late.
Go through every copy and cross it out manually.
Yep.
Dang. The next edition.
This is life.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us today, Ryan. I know your schedule
thank you for having me
insane, and I really, really appreciate you making the time to talk to us and answer our questions and hang out with our book club. So,
thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And so for everybody who is tuned into this, thank you for tuning in. Remember, like, subscribe, join the Discord, all that kind of stuff. And next week we will be starting Fathom Folk, so we'll be reading chapters 1 through 20. So we will catch you then, and happy reading.
Woo!